20th. Must be 21 to enter.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Remember Gabby Douglas? At the Summer Olympics in London in 2012, she became the first black woman in the world to win the gold medal in the gymnastics all-around competition. Douglas was only 16 back then. She hasn't competed since 2016, but she's planning a comeback. Now 27, Douglas announced she would try out for the U.S. team for the Summer Olympics in Paris in 2024. The Dodgers are back in action tonight after the All-Star break. They're in New York to play the Mets. The Dodgers are 51-38. They have a long way to go to match last year's finish of 111-51, the best record in the majors. It's not too soon to start your NFL countdown for training camps. The Chargers open up on July 26th in Costa Mesa. First day of camp for the Rams is July 29th at UC Irvine. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
2 years ago, on Juneteenth 2021, KBLA Talk 1580 launched with a promise to give disenfranchised fellow citizens a voice in current political, economic, social, and cultural issues with an empowering, sustainable, and restorative language.
Everybody's got a little light under the sun, under the sun, under the sun.
As we enter our third year, we are delighted that KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerges as the talk station of choice for African American listeners. In a vigorous public opinion research study, the 2023 African American Media Issue Survey finds that for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 remains the most trusted, credible, and reliable media source in Southern California for African Americans and beyond. Furthermore, 80% of those surveyed agree that outlets like KBLA Talk 1580 provide honest and authentic content about the issues most important to the black community directly from black journalists who understand the issues that need to be addressed. At KBLA Talk 1580, we remain committed to curating conversations that matter to you. Thank you for your continued support. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. The station that sounds like the city looks. The city looks.
They rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
None but ourselves can free our minds. Isn't that what Jacob Blake just said? Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Yes, indeed. It's time for our daily deep dive. One of my favorite folks is on the line. She is the executive director of Black Alliance for Just Immigration. She is an attorney, civil rights, human rights, people's rights attorney. She's a mama, and she happens to be my friend, Attorney Nana Gyamfi. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. How are you? Very powerful interview with Brother Blake. Excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Right, kicking off our BLM Turns 10 weekend. How are you doing?
I am doing good, energized, ready to go, ready to fight as usual.
Right. Well, okay, good. That's a good thing. You are obviously executive director of Baji, and you're dealing with criminal law. You're dealing with human and civil rights law. You have the legal clinics, the Crenshaw Legal Clinic, helping people with all kinds of problems, including staying housed. You've also been an observer on many a protest, a legal observer, and you have done quite a bit of work with and around Black Lives Matter. How do you reflect back on these 10 years?
I mean, it's really amazing, actually. When you think about how Black Lives Matter started and where that movement is today. When you place it historically, some of us is old, and we were out here doing stuff in the 80s and 90s, and can see, some of the progression, right? So looking at it in and of itself, but then also looking at it in the context of work that was done before, and the part that it plays, particularly around the issue of police brutality, right? So we remember Louise Abner, and we remember Diallo, and we remember Eleanor Bumpers, and we remember folks who have, all of these people in the time period, even that I've been in Los Angeles, there's a long roll call of people who have been killed by the police, and the efforts that we've made, including yourself, right, up north, et cetera, to try to get people more moved on this issue. And we would go to the protest, and you knew everybody at the protest, you know what I mean? Because you couldn't get 100 people past the first day or so. And so really to sustain a movement of people looking at Black lives, in particular in the context of police violence, that has been sustained by the people for the past 10 years in this particular iteration. It is, it's something. It's not a small thing to be in this space. And so, glad to see that we're here and looking forward to the continued iterations and other iterations of what is a part of the Black liberation movement, obviously that is bigger than Black Lives Matter, but certainly includes Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. And we're at this weird time, I use the cliche, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? Where we're seeing some progress on things like reparations and the consciousness of Americans, especially younger Americans, around issues of race, anti-Blackness, gender, sexual orientation. At the same time, we see this incredible draconian backslide with the Supreme Court and some of these state courts, and just not just the tone and tenor of the MAGA movement, but the legal moves they're making, from voter suppression, carving up of power in ways that are anti-democratic, and on it goes. And so it's easy to feel discouraged. You said you're energized within, the season of these Supreme Court decisions, for example. How do you stay energized? I mean, we've seen basically within the last couple of weeks, we've seen the legalization of discrimination, right, through the LGBTQ plus website, the overturning of affirmative action, so ending of a widespread measure meant to repair the harm of Jim Crow and our enslavement, which clearly has not been repaired. And it's not encouraging. How are you energized right now?
So, first of all, I think part of it comes from the perspective that I come from, in the beginning, which is that this is a protracted struggle. This is a fight. If you've ever been in a fight and actually, gotten your behind kicked in the fight, the difference between being in the fight and having your behind kicked. We in the fight. Okay?
Yeah, no one's standing over us and counting, right? There's no 4, 5, 6. We're still on our feet, right?
Yeah, and we're not staggering. We're on our feet and we're not staggering. You know what I mean? That we done got hit. It hurt. Okay, it hurt. That was a gut punch. But we're still in the fight, and that is something. Because people do give up in fights. People do end up on the floor, curled up in a ball, getting kicked on. We know that does happen. And we know that that's not what's happening to our people. So I think that's the first piece, is that I recognize this as a protracted struggle, and I'm okay with that. I want to be in the fight. They say you cannot, whether they say you can't fight City Hall, not even you can't beat City Hall. Like, you can't even put up your dukes. So the fact that we are fighting this oppression, and we are fighting these folks that we know are opposing us, would have us all dead or enslaved, and that's not what our situation is. We are not all dead. We are not all enslaved. We know that we're pushing back. We're still making gains in whatever spaces we can. And so that's part of it. I don't think of it as generational. I think back to Charlottesville and we will not replace, you will not replace us and all of that. The person who ran over Heather Heyer, the young white woman who was killed, was 20 years old. I mean, all of these people we see jumping over the walls at the Capitol, et cetera, are not 70 and older. Some of these people are literally in their 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, people that are acting up in these schools and in these libraries, these people are children, just like they're children in those black and whites, right, from our parents' day. So the reality is that we know who we're fighting. We know that we're fighting a force, not just individuals. And I'm excited about the energy that has been created by the realization of those who may have been asleep. And I'm thinking of Brother Blake as I say this, who thought all was good and everything was fine and were ready to let the Black national anthem be the national hymn of the United States. I think people are now understanding that now actually it's more like Jill Scott's version of the U.S. national anthem, and there's still more fighting to do.
Talking with attorney Nana Gyamfi, if you've got questions, I got a few. That it's always my how is this legal question. I want to talk about some of these Supreme Court fights, and then something I'm hearing about on the horizon regarding reparations and the way the right may be queuing up to fight us. Your thoughts on that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid, and we don't back down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, and when I was listing the terrible things the Supreme Court did, I forgot about the student loan forgiveness. I don't know how I forgot that, probably because I already paid mine off, but still, it was terrible news. Still, the Biden administration announced today it's going to automatically forgive $39 billion in student debt for 804,000 borrowers. That's because they have changed the formulation where income-driven repayment plans there's supposed to be a provision where you could get your debt canceled if you've been making payments for 20 or 25 years, depending on when you borrowed and what type of loan and blah blah blah. So apparently, through some configuring of the formulas, $39 billion will be forgiven. Is that a playing in your face Supreme Court move on the Biden administration's part?
I mean, yeah, basically. The thing is that I think, and I'm hoping that the administration will look into other ways that it can get this loan forgiveness happening for more people, because it really needs to be something that's covering millions as opposed to hundreds.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that you just have to keep banging at it. Like Brown versus Board of Education was case number 453,000. Do you know what I'm saying? All the rest before that, they were told no, 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 no. And then Brown is the case that makes it. And that's the case that we remember. And, so we've got to, again, shift our thinking to be, look, are we in the fight? Let's fight again. Okay, you won that round. All right, Clarence and Alito and them, we got more coming for you. And I think the Biden administration needs to shift its position into a fighting position where it's I'm your huckleberry. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I like this because what they said they decided to do is count payments for people who had forbearance. Like when you get, a break from your loan, they'll just count it as if you were still paying. So to me, that's dope, and they need to do more stuff like that. You're right. It should be millions, not just 800,000 families. But I feel like, that's a good way of looking at it. How many cases did it take to get to Brown? Try it this way. Do it another way. Keep chipping away at it. Because Republicans are, have made it really clear that low-income, working-class families, they don't give a rat's behind about.
Absolutely, and that's what they're doing. When we get to Roe, and now Dobbs, when we have affirmative action in college and university admissions, and now don't, that also didn't happen overnight. They kept banging. You know what I mean? They kept pushing.
Yeah,
they kept coming. And so we can't act like, it's kind of like when someone becomes famous and people are like, oh, they're an overnight sensation. And then you find out when they do their, the show on them that they've actually been trying this since they were 10. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as overnight sensation. Everyone is putting in work and getting to a space.
So, according to The Guardian, several lawyers who were arguing cases in front of the Supreme Court, including one who won a case around race-conscious admissions, paid money to a top aide to Justice Clarence Thomas. And they did that using Venmo, which means there's an electronic trail. We've already heard about Clarence Thomas taking $500,000 vacations and other massive perks, not the least of which was this billionaire Harlan Crow buying his mama's house and then letting his mama, upgrading the house and letting his mama continue to live there free of charge. Now, similar questions are arising around Justice Alito. How is this not illegal? How is this not grounds for impeachment?
So I love this. I mean, I don't love that this is happening, but I love that people are seeing this and that this is coming to light, because it points to something that I have been saying that I learned in law school, reading through all these cases. The law is fake, okay? The law is made up, and it's whatever those who are in power decide, or whatever the people using our power push them to have to do. And so, no, it's not illegal. They don't have an ethics code. I find that amazing. We have ethics codes as attorneys. The first-year person who comes out has an ethics code all the way up, right? But somehow when you become a Supreme Court judge, you don't have an ethics code anymore that binds you in the same kind of way. Like, the code is so flimsy that all of these things can happen, and all they have to say, which is what they've all been saying, right? Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, etc. Well, my goodness, and you think that influenced me? I'm appalled.
Yeah, I'm appalled.
How could you say
Look,
that?
give me a $500,000 vacation. I will be very much influenced. Come on with it. Probably say anything you want on the radio.
Right, look. And the thing is that if that happened in a local court,
yeah,
right, and that happened with a local court or a local judge, we would all be clear. That judge would be out of here.
Out of here. I mean,
Gone.
I'm thinking of Councilmember Curran Price, who's being charged with embezzlement for taking benefits for his wife while he was supposedly still married to someone else. In other words, he doesn't complete the paperwork to supposedly divorce his last wife, but he's living with this person as man and wife, domestic partners under California law, right? And now it's embezzlement because she got health benefits. But Clarence Thomas can go on a whole $500,000 vacation and have his mama held hostage by a Nazi billionaire, and that's just fine. The highest court in the land. I'm so confused.
Look, to this minute, these people claim that they don't know who leaked the Dobbs, the draft of the Dobbs decision. How you don't know? How you don't know? It's only so many people that get access to this thing. It's not like all of us could just walk into these chambers. Y'all know. They know. They just decided they're just not going to deal with it. And because of the way the Supreme Court has been structured, it's hard to go after them. It's hard to impeach folks. It's impossible to go after them on some of these immunity reasons. What is really being revealed, Dominique, from the Supreme Court to the Congress, the executive, is the huge cracks, the Grand Canyon-sized cracks in so-called U.S. democracy. And folks either got to face that and figure out how they're going to shift from whatever they set up in the 1800s to something that reflects the reality, or they're going to keep getting messed over, period.
Yeah. I think that's right. It's baffling. It really is baffling. Switching from the macro to the micro for a minute, do you have any speculation about why DA George Gascon might have brought these charges against Curran Price when the FBI decided not to charge, and then they seem to be so petty in a sense, like something you could, censure someone for or fine them for or give them a stern talking to?
Or just have them pay back the money. Again, talking to abolitionists here. So I find this to be complete. I don't want people that are charged with murder to be going to prison. I find this completely preposterous. This is literally, in the worst case scenario, give us back the money. This should be a note. This is an email. Seems that there is an issue here. Give us back the money. And if you need a payment plan, let's work it out. I find it to be political. I can't see what else it is. Yes, the district attorney's office is trying to make it seem as if this is their effort to cleanse and to, make sure that what we have is no corruption in City Hall. Well, you have started from the wrong place. Literally, there are people who are talking about gerrymandering that are still sitting there, that chopping up people's areas with the districts with the blender,
right?
And all those things that we heard on that audio. There are people that we have been pointed out to have engaged in the kind of election campaign fraud that involves being influenced by developers. We are seeing that in the news to the left and to the right, and none of those people are being rounded up. So it's not about corruption. It's about politics. And I think it's interesting that when what happened with the recording happened, that instead of those people being investigated, that they were able to go to the district attorney and request an investigation into how the recording was leaked. And yet, right, so they were treated like big victims. And then we see what's happening here with Councilman Price and with others. And I just see it as political, purely political. I don't think it has, but the district attorney's office is a political office, and it's an elected office, when we need to remember that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that that piece about, the law, your theory that the law is fake, I never thought of it that way. But when people will tell me, oh, that's illegal, I always think, well, if a law is unjust, we need to change it. And I guess that's a version of the law is fake, right? Why isn't Rick Caruso being investigated if, in fact, he tipped off, if, in fact, we know he signed that order, the complaint against Mark Ridley Thomas, and it was actually done to keep Ridley Thomas out of the race as a competitor for mayor? Is that legal? Look, I say all the time, these things that are happening here, if these things were happening in Ghana, if this was in Ghana news, people would be clutching their pearls and their kente cloths, talking about, oh my God, you see, these black people don't know how to run their countries. They're just corrupt. And you know what I'm saying? And there would be all of that conversation, when you see on CNN where people are saying this is not a banana republic and all kinds of other offensive things about people's country. Look at the United States. Look at what is happening from the micro to the macro. Trash, and more trash. Things that would clearly be seen as corruption and improper if can you imagine President Obama doing half of the things that these people are? No. They would have gone in there with pitchforks and torches and, strung him up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, to that point, while I thought it was egregious, Uganda saying you can be put to death for being LGBTQ+, it's not like it's legal everywhere in the United States. I mean, it's not like people are kosher with it everywhere in the United States. It's not like we don't have more hate crimes against LGBTQ people than most other parts of the world. Like, we're not seeing trans people killed every single month. And what brought it so starkly into focus for me was in South Africa, they were bragging about how they were the first African nation to legalize same-sex marriage. We make, back to your Banana Republic's comment, we've got a minute here before news, traffic, and sports. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, again, when we look at how we're getting these laws, whether it be Uganda, what they're trying to pass in Kenya, what they're trying to pass in Ghana, it's directly related to groups like Family Watch and Sharon Slade right out of Utah, who are the same people who are making up cases to go in front of the Supreme Court, like 303 Creative, to have these anti-trans laws passed. You can kill people different ways. You can do it by the death penalty, or you can torture them into suicide. The United States, in some places, has just chosen the latter.
Yes, indeed. We're talking with attorney Nana Gyamfi, and if you have a question, comment, or conversation, love to hear from you, 800-920-1580. I cannot resist asking you about the legal troubles of the 45th president. I can't resist, especially with all these new developments. Take a look at that. And other things I keep asking myself, how is that legal? On KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Friday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest. In Illinois, a civilian commission is naming its 3 finalists in contention to become Chicago's next top cop. African-American Mayor Brandon Johnson now has 30 days to either choose one of the 3 candidates or reject all 3 and order the panel to launch a second search to come up with 3 more. Actors in New York and Los Angeles are hitting SAG-AFTRA picket lines after their union failed to reach an agreement overnight with TV and film producers. Actors are picketing Manhattan sites, HBO Amazon headquarters, Paramount, Rockefeller Center, and Warner Brothers Discovery Netflix headquarters. They're joining Hollywood writers who have been on strike for nearly 2.5 months. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Duran Duran returns to Yalmava Theater August 20th. The British rockers will electrify audiences with hits like Rio and Hungry Like the Wolf. Tickets now on sale at YalmavaTheater.com. Duran Duran, live at Yalmava Resort and Casino at San Manuel, August 20th. Must be 21 to enter.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Remember Gabby Douglas? At the Summer Olympics in London in 2012, she became the first black woman in the world to win the gold medal in the gymnastics all-around competition. Douglas was only 16 back then. She hasn't competed since 2016, but she's planning a comeback. Now 27, Douglas announced she would try out for the U.S. team for the Summer Olympics in Paris in 2024. The Dodgers are back in action tonight after the All-Star break. They're in New York to play the Mets. The Dodgers are 51-38. They have a long way to go to match last year's finish of 111-51, the best record in the majors. It's not too soon to start your NFL countdown for training camps. The Chargers open up on July 26 in Costa Mesa. First day of camp for the Rams is July 29th at UC Irvine. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Need a fresh start? LADWP income qualified customers can get up to $15,000 tax-free to pay overdue water utility bills with the low-income household water assistance program. Benefit amounts may vary and will not impact other benefits. Visit ladwp.com/cares and apply today. That's ladwp.com/cares.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles, with an auto warranty about to expire, or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost, month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-381-8528 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-381-8528. That's 800-381-8528. What do you have to lose? Call 800-381-8528. Again, 800-381-8528.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with attorney Nana Gyamfi. I don't want to spend too much time on the 45th president because he tends to suck all the air out of the room. But he's had a couple of notable setbacks in the past week, I'd say. One, the Department of Justice now saying, well, they changed their mind. They don't think that he was doing official business when he was dissing E. Jean Carroll, and that his comments that he made about her in 2019 are not protected by the fact that he was president of the United States. She's got a case in the pipeline right now. It seems another case. She he was found liable for sexually assaulting her, not raping her, but assaulting her. She got $5 million from that. She's got another one in the pipeline. Seems like a boost for her. Is that unusual for the Justice Department to say, you know what, we changed our mind?
I mean, yes. I think in this case, I would say it's unusual. I don't think in general, right? I mean, if we were talking about the folks who usually end up being my clients, not necessarily. But in this case, I think it's unusual just because it has felt like the Justice Department has not really been moving, I think, in the way that some folks were hoping they would, with the aggression that some folks were hoping they would. And I think that this, the indictment that happened in Florida and around the documents and, some of what we see the Justice Department doing now with interviews, et cetera, is giving people a sense that, okay, maybe some things are moving here finally. And so it's, for folks who are looking for those type of happenings, I think it's a good sign.
The special counsel, Jack Smith, told a federal judge, well, he kind of went hard, saying that there's no basis in fact or law for postponing the federal trial of Donald Trump. He wants a jury selection to start in December. The former president, he who shall not be named, says it should be delayed until after the election. One of the things he said was there were too many documents to read, too many videos to watch for his legal team. But Jack Smith says that is a misrepresentation, and he's pushing for a trial date. To your point about things moving, how do you perceive this?
Well, again, this is what people want to see in terms of some firmness and some battle, right? Some fight energy, and obviously the special prosecutor is showing that. Now, we know from cases, federal court does kind of make it a little tougher to get things moved than state court does in terms of the criminal, the criminal sanction side. But still, if attorneys come in and say, hey, there's all this stuff, we can't see it, and there really is a bunch of videos and a bunch of documents, there probably is going to be a postponement. Now, do I think the postponement, does it make sense for it to be sometime after the election next year? No, that's preposterous. Could it be something past December of this year? Yeah, it could be something past December of this year. There's 37 counts. These are the things that you weigh when you bring 37 counts, right? That people are going to say they need a lot of time. They got to deal with each count separately. So I expect that it probably won't be something that happens before December. Maybe we're talking at the top of next year, but we'll see. Because this judge also seems to be one that people are concerned about being kind of pro 44 and a half on the other side. So,
well, she was appointed by him, right? And she's the same judge that made that ridiculous ruling that a special master was going to look at all the papers, which would have slowed it down till 2034, and that was overturned later as being, so. It is
right. So
concerning.
He's battling someone. Exactly. And there may be something that ends up having to get appealed again and all of that. But I think it's not going to be after the election.
In Georgia, the grand jury that is going to look at charges against the 44 and a half president, as you call him, for trying to overturn the election in 2020 was sworn in on Tuesday after a 3-hour selection in Atlanta. Moving the ball a bit in the case being brought by, or potentially brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. It didn't get a lot of notice because there's so much other stuff going on. But again, from a legal perspective, what does that mean?
That means that, it's on and popping. I mean, I think the Georgia case is one of the cases that I could think of as a stronger case. Same as, as the document case, because you have recordings. Like, literally, the man is on the recording. I'm like, can't you find me some more votes? It's just preposterous. And I don't know. I mean, what do you want to say? I mean, as a criminal defense attorney, you're looking at your client. You're listening to the tape and listening to the audio. I'm saying the tape. You see how old I am. You're listening to the audio, and you're just looking at your client, just squinting your eyes and shaking your head. Just, what are we doing here? What are we supposed to do, And you're just, you're about to come up with the pig liver and just throw it in the body and hope that it lives. Because what else can you do at this point, given what your client has done? And so I think that that's a case that 44.5 needs to be concerned about. Just as this document case, I think, need to be concerned about that. Those are serious charges, and in terms of his personal situation. Now, of course, what he's focused on is how he can use these things to aggrandize himself and make himself seem like a martyr for his fans and all of that. And because he's really fed by that, that's the diet that keeps him moving. He's, I think, not paying the or not taking the seriousness of the situation, in terms of what it means for his personal self versus this fake self that he's constructed.
Well, Fani Willis did say we'll probably see charges sometime between July 11th, which was a couple days ago, and September 1st. So between now and September 1st, she has made it clear that if she is going to bring charges, it will happen then. So I would call that imminent. Hot boy summer for the former president. I can't even keep up with all of them, but I guess, it's like you said, he's raised a lot of money by whining and carrying on about such as this. I was alerted, actually, Fahima, who sometimes sends me great articles and listens to this show, alerted me to something that I found really problematic going on in Texas, which could be Texas's middle name. A lawmaker there has introduced a bill in the House of Representatives to block federal funding for any state or local government that creates a law to pay reparations for slavery. It's called 4321, H.R. 4321. Representative Brian Babin put that in on June 23rd, and he says American taxpayers shouldn't be forced to pay for radical race-based reparation payments to please the woke left. So what worries me, the bill has 13 co-sponsors, is that what he's trying to do here is preemptively block reparations payments should they be approved by any city, state, or even the federal government by withholding funds. It reminds me of what they have tried to do with sanctuary cities, so-called sanctuary cities. If you're going to help, refugees, we're going to starve out your budget. Could this, is this worrisome when you hear about it? Could it be an effective strategy for Republicans to block us from getting our reparations when we finally get across the finish line legally?
It could if we're static, right? I say all the time that we're not fighting a tree. We're not practicing with the wooden dummy. And you're right, that's not going to fight back and not going to hit back. And you have to think about that, because otherwise when you actually fight a person, you get shocked when they kick back or hit back. You're like, wait a minute, I'm not used to that. I don't know how to duck, But in the same way, we're not a tree either. We ain't no tree either. So we also have some things that we could be doing and some adjustments that we can be making. And I think this actually allows us to sharpen our conversations around reparations, sharpen our legal arguments, the research that we're doing, increase our creativity and imagination. We knew that the reparations fight was not going to be easy. It's an all hands on deck. I think for me, it further emphasizes, as a person who is, the daughter of migrants from Ghana, the reason that we have to have a Unite the Diaspora campaign around reparations, not so that I can stand in line right behind Dominique with my hand out, but so that I am pressing, right, but so that I am pressing for reparations for Dominique, understanding that I'm not going to leapfrog over Dominique into some white land of milk and honey, that whatever Dominique is able to get into and whatever respect of Dominique's human rights and human dignity happen, that me as a sister, that I also am going to get that respect. And saying for you that if the reparations conversation that we're having outside, or even to some degree inside this country as Black migrants, if I don't have that respect and that human dignity, then Dominique is not going to have that either. We need to lock arms and use all the creativity of all the ideas internationally that we have as Black people about reparations and bring them to bear in the United States and everywhere else that we are. But it just can't be the basic knee-jerk legal settlements, who and what and all of that. That right there is going to be easily blocked.
Yeah, so this Joker Babin, I mean, if his bill were to pass, would automatically target Evanston, Illinois, because they've already started paying out reparations. When we come forward, Attorney Nana Gyamfi, I want to hear your thoughts on this ruling a judge made, Carolyn Wall made last Friday, where she dismissed without prejudice the claims of the 3 surviving centenarians, the 100-plus-year-olds who waited 100 years for their day in court. I want to get your thoughts on that from a legal perspective when we come forward. The Black Wall Street denied justice by Judge Carolyn Wall. What's next, if anything? And again, how is this legal? It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
The family of Keenan Anderson is suing the city of Los Angeles for $100 million. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Keenan Anderson, a high school English teacher that was visiting Los Angeles from Washington, D.C., was tragically killed at the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department in January of this year. His family, alongside civil rights and personal injury attorney Benjamin Crump and Carl Douglas, have announced a $100 million lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. Crump and Douglas are representing Keenan Anderson's son, Sincere Anderson, and his mother, Gabrielle Hansel. The family is suing for civil rights violations, assault and battery, false imprisonment, and negligence on the part of the LAPD officers. The family of Keenan Anderson and attorneys Crump and Douglas want it to be known that this is only part of a systemic issue within the fabric of police departments everywhere.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Yes, indeed. It's always fun to talk with Attorney Nana Gyamfi, but also very informative, right? So I admit I am quite angry about this decision by a judge in Oklahoma. The defendants in the case were the state and the city. And the 3 plaintiffs, all over 100 years old, were directly impacted. 2 of them had their house burned to the ground. One, granted they were little, but the judge said they couldn't prove individual harm. Dismissed and says, nope, this can't be brought back. Can't be appealed at the state level or at the city level. How is that legal?
So, yes. I mean, the judge dismissed with prejudice, which means that the judge is saying, yeah, you don't get another bite at the apple. You can't file this case again. They are still able to appeal. What's the likelihood, though, that appeal is going to be granted? I think when you look at this fight, it's been a long fight. It's not the first time. This is another effort knocking at the door, and got to commend the attorneys that picked up this case, because it wasn't an easy one to start off with. And a lot of times when you have these this is a Nana Gyamfi type case, right? The case is where there's literally no guarantee that you're going to make a dime. In fact, it's more than likely that you're not going to win the case, but you pursue the case anyway because you know that it's the right thing to do, right? So I've got to tip my hat to that, and tip my hat to the Queen Mothers and the Babas, right, that continue to pursue and move forward. When they could have just given up and said, look, it's not going to happen. You only got so many breaths left anyhow at any age, but certainly when you're over the age of 100, and to dedicate some of those breaths and heartbeats to this is, again, we've got to tip our gele, and really do that deep bow. And then with respect to the judge, obviously these people are horrible. It's just, because the judge could easily have not found that, as you've indicated. These are people who are alive. We're always told that the reason that reparations can't work is because the people who actually suffered the harm are not here anymore. It's the descendants of those people. And so they should not be able to get anything. So this flies in the face of that, right? You have people that actually experienced harm. Now, worse, it's like harm is not harm. I mean, we're in the world of alternative facts, right? This is where we are. We're in the world of that kind of thinking that allows, again, a judge to just decide, I'm thinking something else is happening here other than what you've shown me, and I've moved on. And the judges have that power, so it doesn't even get to a jury because they cut you off at the knees.
Yeah, so Viola Fletcher was 7 years old when her house was burned to the ground. And then she ends up working as a maid for her whole life for the very people that burned her house down. How is that not direct harm, individual harm? This judge, Carolyn Wall, may she live on in infamy, describes herself as a constitutional conservative. And so, again, it feels like their own political lens that's making the decision and not the pure intention or letter of the law.
Absolutely, because law is interpreted, right? That's what we talk about, the interpretation of the law. And the lens that you use is what determines whether that's a harm or not a harm. Did you own the house, 7-year-old? Now you start going into all of this foolishness. And black harm is so not recognized anyway, as we know. They don't think our pain is as painful. They don't think our tears are as hurtful. So you already have that in there. And then you have someone that's looking and really saying, if we allow this to happen, how many more folks? Because Tulsa is what we know about. Black Wall Street is what is famous, in other words. There are so many more examples of this all throughout, these states. And they know that if they allow this to happen, they open up a floodgate, and they don't want to open up the floodgate. They like the world the way that they want the world, and it's a way in which they are controlled. It is white minority rule, as they had in apartheid South Africa.
And after visiting there, Nana Gyamfi, I'm going to say have.
Okay, have. Thank you.
Yeah, because they have a black government, but white people control all the wealth, all the land, all the tourism. I mean, they even control the politicians to a large extent, based on, money. So one of the things I sadly learned on my trip is that apartheid ain't all the way gone, just like Jim Crow ain't all the way gone.
Absolutely. And that's what they're looking at. They're saying, yes, we've been in a situation before in which there were more black people around here than us, and we controlled everything, right, and enslaved those people. And we're going to, they're trying to keep that going and get back to the place that they were in before. And they're using the law in that way. It's either the pen or the sword. And what they've shown in places like Texas is that they're cool with using both. What they show in places like Oklahoma, and throughout this country, even in those states that people consider to be more liberal, that if they aren't going to get you with the sword, they certainly are going to get you with the pen. And it's going to be in the form of legislation, and it's going to be in the form of, judicial decisions after litigation.
Leslie Benningfield Randall said he lost 102 years waiting for justice. Doesn't want anyone else to lose 102 years. He's 108 now. Viola Fletcher, 109. No, that was Hughes Van Ellis, excuse me. He's 102. Leslie is 108. And they're still waiting. And like you said, they ain't got time to wait. I'm 108. I don't got time to wait. What would it take for a case like this to go to the Supreme Court? Is there any chance it would?
Unlikely, because the Supreme Court gets to decide what cases it takes. It would have to go through the whole Texas chain, and at some point the Texas Supreme Court, which, decides also what cases it takes. And so that's not likely. And at any rate, it would be going to these horribles, right? The basket of deplorables. And they would use that to bar reparations for anyone and at any time in any space of the universe. And so not necessarily helpful. This is where organizing, activism, advocacy, and is really pushing in, I think, a more internationalist way is going to have to be what gets the goods at this point.
That's interesting. I was hoping it would go to the Supreme Court because I want them to show their bald-faced KKK hooded selves and booties to the whole world so some of these delusional black folks could wake up and smell the gunpowder. But I think you got a great point there, Attorney Gyamfi. It could be we've first affirmative action, now reparation. They are unconstitutional, and I can certainly see that happening. Yeah,
absolutely. And especially on that basis that they're trying to get the legislation passed in Texas. Why should the average taxpayer have to sit and pay for it? Even though the average taxpayer is benefiting, enjoying off of the labor of enslaved Africans and so-called free Africans who are also not so free, right? And they guess that's why the average taxpayer should give it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're benefiting off 12 generations of our labor by living in this superpower that affords you privilege. So therefore, I don't buy that argument. So many things I want to ask you about, but we've got 3 minutes here before we pass the microphone to Mr. Tavis Smiley. And it's not much time for an update, but are there any urgent calls to action around the issue of immigration, which is, your portfolio within the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, of which you are the executive director?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, I think what we're seeing now, both in Los Angeles, in Texas, in New York, is a wave of Black migrants who have gone through the process at the border, are coming in to the country, and are, as usual, being treated with all the anti-Blackness that we already know exists in this country in terms of support, where they're ending up, how they're ending up. Ask people to follow us at Baji Tweet on Twitter and at InstaBaji. We've got some calls to action that are being made. Our people are really, literally, being put into refugee camps in the middle of Black communities with no support. And, our communities are already under-resourced. And actually, this should be a reason why we should be getting more resources. That's what happened with the Ukrainians. That's what happened with the Venezuelans. There's absolutely no reason that that's not happening with our communities other than anti-Blackness. And it's something that should cause our communities, both African-American and Black migrant, to come together and get our resources to be able to build the safety nets we need to cover us all.
Attorney Nana Gyamfi, as always, it is a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Always lovely to be on.
Yes, indeed it is. And KBLA delegation, I will see you tomorrow. I'm going to be one of the main stage MCs along with Tavis Smiley from noon to 6. Los Angeles Lamert Park People's Justice Festival as Black Lives Matter turns 10. There's going to be performances. There's going to be giveaways, healing justice space, vendors, a children's village, and of course we are centering those impacted families, those who have had their loved ones' lives stolen by police violence. Will be at the Garden at Community Build, and we'll stop by and show them some love. Tavis Smiley's up next. You know that. The best of Tavis Smiley. History's now, and we're making it together. I'm Dominique DePrima. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.